Hello, so by the time you're watching this, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are either already out in your region or will be out very soon, and I thought it could be interesting to go through and kind of do a tier list on the version exclusive Pokemon for each of the two games. You can go ahead and see what I think about the Brilliant Diamond exclusives after this, which I will link in the description down below. Now, I don't want to waste too much time because I know what the people are here to see, and they are here to see me rank some Pokemon that are version exclusive to Shining Pearl. So these are alphabetical, but we will do Polka last because that feels fitting. First up, unfortunately, is Articuno. There's no easy way to say this, but Articuno is a really bad Pokemon. I mean, it's just an ice type, right? And the ice type comes with a lot of inherent flaws. I'm going to put it in the C tier because, I mean, it's still a legendary Pokemon. It has good stats. It has good special defense, good speed. It has Tailwind, Ice Beam. I think it gets Hurricane this gen. However, the thing is that it just doesn't do enough things well, and the defensive typing is so abysmal. We're also going to be ranking these obviously within the context of a Gen 4 metagame. So I would say overall, all the Pokemon will be ranked a little bit higher than they would in a Gen 8 metagame, just because there's less competition and there's, you know, more niches for Pokemon to fill and stuff like that. The power level's overall lower is what I'm trying to say. So ordinarily, I wouldn't put Articuno in the C tier if this were all of Gen 8 Pokemon, but for Gen 4 and below, it's probably fine. Bastiodon, I think I have to put it in the D tier. It's upsetting because Bastiodon does have some things that are okay about it. Like, it has good natural bulk. It's really physically bulky. It has a couple of nice resistances. The defensive typing isn't really that good despite being a steel type, but steel plus rock is actually really bad because you get 4 times weaknesses to ground, fighting, get weaknesses to water. Yeah, just with how bad the defensive typing is, or specifically having 4 times weaknesses is really bad. It makes Bastiodon in a tricky spot, and then when you consider that it doesn't really do damage and it's like a support Pokemon without a great supportive move pool apart from Wide Guard, it's just really not very good. Beedrill is a gimmick Pokemon. It's not a Pokemon that was ever intended to be good. It's like the first early game bug Pokemon aside from Butterfree, but unlike Butterfree, it's actually just bad. I have nothing good to say about Beedrill. It's a bad Pokemon that doesn't do anything well. If I had to use it for competitive, it would be difficult to say the least. Ludicolo, on the other hand, I think is an A tier Pokemon. Ludicolo, in terms of how much I like it, is an S tier Pokemon, but the thing about Ludicolo is that it does a lot of things above average. It's got good defensive typing. Water and grass eliminates your grass and electric weaknesses that water provides, so it's that. It's a Swift Swim user. It could use Rain Dish. Normally we'll prefer Swift Swim. It has Fake Out, Scald, Giga Drain, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, all stuff like that. However, it used to be stronger, and maybe Gen 4 will change this. It feels like its offenses really aren't there. It's not really a rain sweeper. It's more of a rain like support Pokemon, and normally people who want to invest into running rain archetypes are going to want a little bit more power. It's still a very good Pokemon though. No disrespect to Ludicolo, but it's just not quite strong enough that I should put it in the S tier, I think. It's not going to swing fights a lot of the time. Lugia, I mean, compared to the other Pokemon on this list, Lugia is going to be the S tier, but in terms of restricted Pokemon, I think I'm actually going to put Lugia in the A tier. Lugia has like a bit of nuance because normally Pokemon like Lugia are either not going to be legal because they're a restricted Pokemon, or they're only going to be legal when there are other restricted Pokemon like Groudon, Zacian, Xerneas, right? So in the context of Gen 4 and below, I think Lugia is fine. It has Multiscale, it has Roost, it has Calm Mind, but it doesn't have a lot of that real offensive power, right? I think with Lugia, a lot of the time, you're going to be sitting there, you're going to be bulking up. Calm Mind, you're going to be recovering with Roost, you're going to be taking advantage of Multiscale, maybe you have a weakness policy. Overall, I think you're just not going to have that real raw damage output that's really nice for a Pokemon like Lugia, so for a restricted Pokemon in general. So yeah, I put Lugia in the A tier. Not a bad Pokemon by any means. Lunatone's going a bit higher than a lot of people expect. I actually lost to this at US Nationals 2016. It was a Assault Fest, and it had like basically 4 coverage moves that hit every single Pokemon on my team for super effective, and it resisted every single one of my moves. I think I had like 1 Pokemon that could hit it for neutral, or maybe super effective at that. But yeah, basically Lunatone's okay. It doesn't have a lot going for it, but it's a decent special attacker with a really wide move pool. It has Moonblast, obviously, Earth Power, Psychic, has a couple of rock special moves like Ancient Power. I think it also definitely gets Ice Beam as well, so it actually has a pretty wide move pool. You give that thing an Assault Vest, it has Levitate. It actually it has a niche. It's not a great niche, but it does have a niche. People might be surprised to see Magmar separate from Magmortar. I brought this thing to the World Championships in 2013. To be fair, via Pokemon XD, it did get Follow Me, via like an exclusive, I guess, event move, or it wasn't actually, I don't think it was an event. It was like, because you had to reset for it. It was basically a Pokemon XD purification move, as I recall. And so I brought a non-perfect IV'd Magmar to the Worlds 2013. I don't like to talk about Worlds 2013 because it didn't go very well, but yeah, I did feel obligated to put Magmar in its own category. I'll put it in the C tier. If Magmar still got Follow Me, I would put it in the S tier, to be clear, but because of how they changed the rules for VGC, you can no longer use old transfer rules, or old transfer moves, excuse me, so for that reason, I'm going to put Magmar in the C tier. I mean, it's decently bulky. You can use, like, it has, like, decent special attacks, so you could use, like, Flamethrower, Will-O-Wisp, Protect, Helping Hand, but there are better Pokemon for that role, to be honest, and yeah, you wouldn't really want to use Magmar most of the time. Magmortar, I'm also putting in the C tier. Magmortar has better coverage and more offensive stats than Magmar, but you lose the bulk from Eviolite, and it's not very fast. It doesn't really do anything especially well. It really struggles to hit certain types of Pokemon. In terms of special moves, like, it really wants to use Focus Blast, I think, to hit rock types, which is not a move you ever really want to run, so it will normally run something like, I don't know, Flamethrower or Overheat, Protect, Thunderbolts, and then the fourth move is kind of personal preference, but I just don't think it's that good. I think it's about as good as Articuno, so I'm putting it in the C tier. Mischievous is actually going to surprise people. I'm actually going to put Mischievous in the A tier. I think for a Gen 4 and below meta, Mischievous is actually pretty strong. A fun fact about Mischievous is that it actually got second at US Nationals in 2013. I believe it was Shadow Ball, Protect, Will-O-Wisp, and Pain Split, but I could be wrong about that. But basically, it's a very bulky and actually relatively fast Ghost type with Will-O-Wisp, and so when you give it Eviolite, it actually has like pretty decent bulk. With Will-O-Wisp, you can actually shore that up pretty significantly. It actually has really good natural special bulk. So you have the natural special bulk, you have Will-O-Wisp boosting up your physical bulk, you have Eviolite just making you bulkier in general, and Ghost types in general have pretty low base HP, so giving it Pain Split actually makes it really annoying to deal with. I mean, the iconic Gen 4 Pokemon are like Garchomp, right? And in Gen 4 metas, we think of like Tyranitar, stuff like that, and being able to burn those Pokemon and even be, I believe Mischievous is base 105 speed, but let me check that really quick, actually. Good thing I checked, because actually it has base 85 speed, which is definitely a lot slower than I thought. I think Mismagius must have base 105 speed, but even with base 85 speed, I mean, you're still going to be faster than a good chunk of the metagame. It definitely falls a little bit in my opinion, in my stock. Maybe this is a B+ Pokemon, but I still think Mischievous deserves some respect here. I'm putting Mismagius in the B tier. This honestly might be, it's not better than Lunatone. I think it's a C tier Pokemon. You get speed, but in exchange you lose a lot of bulk, and the additional offense you gain really isn't worth it in my opinion. Basically, Mismagius is in this tough spot where it's not offensive enough that it can really be considered like a really big offensive threat, but it's not support bulky enough that it can play a support role, so it kind of gets stuck in the middle. Moltres, I mean, I think it's a C tier Pokemon at best. D tier, it's definitely better than Beedrill and Bastiodon because it like actually can do damage, but it's not very good. I mean, Moltres has access to fire moves like Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Overheat, all that stuff, Heat Wave. It gets access to Hurricane, but other than that, I mean, the 4x weakness to Rock is just really tough for both Articuno and Moltres. It's weak to Electric, it's weak to Water, it doesn't have good defensive typing, it doesn't have the offensive stats to really sweep through things. Under the right conditions, it can definitely be okay, which is why it's C tier, but yeah, it's not great. Ninetales. So Ninetales is an A tier Pokemon in my opinion. It's going to be one of the better drought setters in the games, and so if you want to build a Sun team or if you want drought, which is just a good ability in general, Ninetales is going to be one of your options. It's fine. I don't have anything great to say about it. Like, it's fine. Thanks to the Sun, it actually, like, does decent damage with its fire moves. It can run Will-O-Wisp. It doesn't have a very good move pool, but it's mostly there to set the Sun and then maybe fire off an Overheat and then die. Maybe you get a Will-O-Wisp off. It may get Encore. It may get Disable. It also doesn't have very good base stats. Like, its special attack is actually pretty mediocre, and although it's fast, its bulk is pretty bad, so it's fine. It would be much lower if it didn't have Drought, but Drought is good enough that it bumps it in A tier on its own. Pinsir is really bad. Even Megapincer wasn't good, and that, like, was actually, like, Flying Dual type, had Aerialate, and it was usable, but Pinsir has bad stats, a terrible typing, and a bad move pool. Well, his move pool could be okay if it was better, but I think the stats and the typing really hurt it a lot. It's really not worth using or looking into. I'm gonna put Purugly in the B tier. There was actually a period of 2019 where I played against this Purugly team on the ladder. It was like Rayquaza, Lunala, Purugly, and the thing that makes Purugly usable is that it has Defiant. And Defiant is a really good ability in a lot of competitive Pokemon formats because Intimidate and stat lowering moves are so common. The thing about Purugly is that although it's actually shockingly fast, I think it's like base 115, it doesn't have a lot to do if it doesn't get a boost up, and there aren't as many Intimidate Pokemon in the decks for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so I'm not convinced that it's going to be as strong as it would be if like Intimidate was super popular like it is in the current like VGC format. But it's still a good Pokemon with high base speed. Fake Out is always good to have. Move coverage is kind of sus, so it's not going any higher, but Defiant plus high base speed plus decent stats is enough to give it the B tier. Sableye. Really good disruptive Pokemon. I'm not putting this thing in the S tier because Sableye can't do a lot on its own. It's really there to support a partner, but it can be really annoying to deal with. Recover, Will-O-Wisp, Foul Play, Quash, Confuse Ray, Taunt. In Gen 8, it gets Encore as well, Disable as well. It can be a really disruptive support Pokemon to deal with. The reason it's not S tier is because, number one, it can get stuck doing nothing, and if the Sableye isn't able to actually, like, if it's not able to disrupt the opponent in a significant way, then you're kind of playing a 1 versus 2 a lot of the time. Also, because Dark types are immune to Prankster, Pokemon like Tyranitar, like Sableye just is totally useless against Tyranitar, pretty much, and pretty much every Dark type is not going to be able to really do anything against. So yeah, that's why it's not any higher, but I do think within the context of this deck, it's like a pretty decent support Pokemon. Salamence I'm also putting in the A tier. Lots of A tier Pokemon for this list. Salamence is one of the better Intimidate Pokemon. It's up there with Arcanine for the decks. It doesn't have the stats to do anything that it really wants to do, like, enough. You need to give it an item as well, so it's not fast enough to beat Garchomp, so you're gonna have to give it Choice Scarf, but then you lack the power, so you might want Choice Specs, and if you do neither, then maybe you do Life Orb, which is a bit more flexible, but then you don't have the speed or the power, so, or you don't have as much speed, you don't have as much power, so yeah, it's in a bit of an awkward, it's definitely an awkward spot, but it's still a good Pokemon. It has a good move coverage. It's typically going to be special. It's going to be running Draco Meteor, Flamethrower, Protect, and one more. It's a solid Pokemon. It's a good Intimidate Pokemon. It's been good in formats before where, like, the dex was limited. Like, it was good in 2012, it was good in 2017. It can be okay when the dex is limited. It's never going to be, like, amazing without its Mega, but yeah, even without its Mega, it still is usable, so occasionally. Sandslash D tier. This Pokemon doesn't have anything going for it. It doesn't really have the stats. It doesn't have the move pool. It doesn't have the typing. It doesn't have anything going for it. Seviper I'm also putting in the D tier. They made a Pokemon that is Arbok but worse, and Arbok is already not great, which is like, I just feel kind of embarrassed for Seviper. Like, I legitimately don't know how I would ever use this thing. I mean, just basically use Gunk Shot and Choice Band maybe, or I literally don't even know how you would. I don't really have much to say about Seviper or Sandslash for that matter. They're both just pretty mediocre Pokemon that, like, really need pretty significant buffs to actually be considered playable. I'm gonna put Slowbro in the B tier. This is either B or A. This is probably B+. And I'm gonna put Slowking in the A tier, and because these are the same Pokemon basically, but with different stats, I'm gonna talk about them at once. Bulky Trick Room Setters. One is higher special defense, one is higher physical defense. Regenerator is a really good ability. You have access to Scald, Ice Beam, Psychic. You even get Fire moves, which could be unusual for a water type, so that's pretty good. Great Bulk. You are pretty locked into running Trick Room with these things, though. They're so slow that you're always gonna be at a disadvantage if Trick Room isn't enough, but as far as Trick Room Setters go, they're both quite good. The reason Slowking is higher is because typically I value special defense higher than defense in VGC formats because of the prevalence of Intimidate, and you can always bolster your physical defense by intimidating your opponent. So that's why I think they're there. I mean, good move pools. You know what? I think Slowbro might be. I think Slowbro is better than Slowking is better than Slowbro, but I think it feels wrong to put Slowbro in the B tier. So we're gonna put Slowbro in the A tier as well. But yeah, basically, like, they're just super solid, bulky water types, which is always useful to have with built-in recovery thanks to Regenerator and the ability to Trick Room and a good dual typing. So yeah. Stantler goes in the C tier. The only reason Stantler's not in D tier is because it's one of the only Pokemon, it might be the literal only Pokemon in the game that has the combination of Skill Swap and Intimidate. Now, basically, like, the only way to activate your own Defiant or competitive Pokemon, like with your partner, like, you can't lower their stats, it won't work. Skill swapping your Intimidate to your partner, like if you do Stantler plus Milotic, you can Skill Swap Intimidate to them, and then their Intimidate will activate. It's now their Intimidate, and that will proc Defiant and competitive. So that's kind of Stantler's niche. It also gets Trick Room, which could be useful as well. Like, you can do Trick Room with that as well. Like, Trick Room plus a slow Defiant or competitive Pokemon. But I mean, the stats are just atrocious. That's the real thing, and it can't really do damage, which is a big problem. Ursaring can do damage, but it doesn't have the bulk or the speed to really make up for it. Like, you need to be able to either survive attacks so you can get like big attacks off, or outspeed so you can KO them before they KO you, and Ursaring can do neither, even though it does have like Guts Facade. Yeah, so I'm putting Ursaring in the C tier. It does do damage though, it's definitely better than the D tier Pokemon, but we finally have our first addition to the S tier in Zapdos. I mean, Zapdos is good pretty much regardless of the format. It's got great typing. Electric obviously only has a ground weakness, and you can eliminate that with Flying typing, and then, you know, Flying and Electric, you eliminate the Electric weakness that Flying has, so it's really a nice type combination. Zapdos has the stats, it has the typing, it has the move pool, it has Thunderbolt, Hurricane, Heat Wave, Tailwind sometimes, Detect, like just like a really solid Pokemon. Electric is a really good typing, and yeah, I mean, Electric is just like, it's very good typing offensively, it's good typing defensively, and having a bulky Electric type that also can do damage is just really nice. Like, Zapdos is like one of the best Pokemon at two-shotting something without being like super threatened in return. So I really like it, and also just being able to offer speed control is really, really valuable. Yeah, Zapdos is a really good Pokemon. I've got nothing bad to say about it. Last but not least, we have Palkia. I mean, as terms of restricted Pokemon go, it's Palkia is probably like, in a general list, I'd probably put it in the B tier. It's about as good as Dialga. It like has a slightly different niche in that it's really good against Kyogre, but it's like it has like, you know, slightly worse defensive typing. But Water and Dragon is good typing. It really struggles with the Fairy type, obviously. It actually doesn't learn Scald, so what that actually makes a big difference for Palkia, and it might, like, in general, it probably takes Palkia's usage like down a lot, because if you want to use Palkia, you're forced to use Hydro Pump, and Hydro Pump is like a powerful move, sure, but it's an inconsistent one because it will miss. And so the average Palkia set will be like Protect, Spatial Rend, Hydro Pump, and then either substitute a Trick Room depending on what you want. Maybe you can do Flamethrower if you feel so inclined, but the thing is that if you're doing like Protect, Spatial Rend, Hydro Pump +1, then you don't have a 100% accurate move. And if versus things that resist Dragon, being Steel and Fairy, you're forced to click Hydro Pump, and so that's why it doesn't like do as well typically. But in a format with less restricted Pokemon, a lot of the newer restricted Pokemon are Fairy type, like Xerneas, Zacian, stuff like that. And so in a format where you only have Gen 4 restricted Pokemon and below, I think Polka is actually really good because there are no Fairy types, so you can actually lean into Spatial Rend a lot more. You don't have to worry as much about being forced to click Hydro Pump in front of like Xerneas or Zacian or something. So yeah, Polka has really good stats, good defensive typing. It's definitely weaker versus Fairy Pokemon, but again, those are less common in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and before those like previous gens. So I think in the context of this format, it should be S tier. And that's my list. So we have 2 in S, 2 in B, a fair few in A, and then the rest in C and D. If you haven't already, I do recommend going to watch my Brilliant Diamond tier list video as well. I do think, obviously, the Brilliant Diamond version exclusives are just way stronger. I mean, there were way more in S tier. It was definitely more balanced between A and S. There's more in A tier here, but several of these are like, we're being generous. Like, both Slowbro and Ninetales are potentially B. Like, this honestly, like, if my list looked like this, even like this wouldn't be a crazy list either. Like all 5 of these mons they're kind of on the fence for me personally. Like kind of B plus, or maybe some of them actually belong in B, like Ninetales. And you have way more in C and D than we did in the Brilliant Diamond list. So yeah, overall, I just think the power level of the Brilliant Diamond exclusives is a lot higher. You have a lot more impactful Pokemon and a lot like fewer really garbage Pokemon. So for that reason, I have to say Brilliant Diamond has the better version exclusive Pokemon, though of course which you get. Maybe you really love Zapdos, maybe you really love Polka, Ludicolo. Like that's not to say you should get Brilliant Diamond or whatever. It's just my opinion on which Pokemon are overall better. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back with more Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl content tomorrow. Goodbye.